right, welcome back once again, everybody. It's the Dr. Treefruit and Don podcast. I'm Don Seifrit. I'm here with Kari Peter. Say hi, Kari.
Hello.
Sean Kumar. Say hi, Sean.
Hello, everyone.
And we have a special guest today on Friday, January 31st, 2025. Happy New Year, by the way. Dr. Lee Kalcsits. Say hi, Lee.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me on.
Lee, if you could kind of introduce yourself, talk a little bit about where you are, where you're from, some of your previous work, that would be really awesome.
Yeah, so my name is Lee Kalcsits. I am an associate professor at Washington State University and the endowed chair for tree fruit physiology and management. I'm located in Wenatchee, Washington, which is kind of in the central part of Washington, off the main campus, which is in Pullman, Washington. We're about 3 hours from the main campus. My work is focused primarily on environmental physiology, so abiotic stress, which is like heat and cold, and how that affects tree productivity and fruit quality, and then also plant nutrition.
Cool. So you've done a lot of work on heat and cold, obviously. Could you talk about some of your previous projects?
Yeah, so when I first started Washington State University in 2014, there was a lot of interest in alternative ways to control fruit sunburn. And that led us down a project where we conducted research for about 3 or 4 years on netting and its use in as a protective cover to reduce sunburn in apple. And we tested different colors and different types of net and how effective it is, and led to some recommendations for growers on how to use netting to reduce sunburn, as well as the other benefits like hail and insect protection.
Cool. Awesome. And then kind of as the lead out of that, the project that you, Sean, and I are all on, as well as many other folks, and I hope you'll be able to rattle off those participating institutions, deals with specifically abiotic stress in pome fruit.
Yeah. So SPARC, or Strengthening Pear and Apple Resilience to Climate, is a new project that we just started up that's funded by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, NIFA, and that is a specialty crop research initiative grant. It's a 4 to 5 year project where we're focused on improving apple and pear resilience to extreme temperatures. So we're focused on not just what's going on in the summertime, which is what I do in my program, but also what's going on in the wintertime in terms of cold temperatures and freeze damage, what goes on in the springtime. So the lack of connection sometimes that can happen where you have bloom and then a freeze event that creates a lot of damage. And then also extreme temperatures during fruit ripening that lead to, or potentially could lead to, poor red color developments over those really warm nights and those really warm conditions right at harvest, near harvest time, that can create problems in how the fruit behaves in storage and how it develops red color and develops as that nice appearance that we're all used to apples having.
Cool. Yeah, I know this past year when we were during harvest out in my part of the state and probably up in Sean's too, quite a few guys were picking apples well into October in shorts. And boy, they got really tired of that. So
Yeah. One thing we noticed in the last decade or so was that in different areas of the country, there's the extreme temperatures can lead to significant losses at different regions and different times and different factors causing those losses. So that's what kind of fed into our rationale for this project. So I think we added up that there was over $400 million in insurable losses in the last 5 years to apple and pear crops in the United States.
So obviously, Sean and I are part of Penn State and Penn State Extension. You're over in Washington State. What other organizations are working with us on this project?
Yeah, so we have, I think there's 22 project personnel from, yeah, like you said, Washington State University, Penn State University, Oregon State. So there's a pretty strong pear growing region in the northern part of Oregon that is really important to this project. We have Michigan State University, primarily focused on apples, Cornell University, University of Maine, so one of our coldest regions, and then the USDA ARS both in Washington State and in New York State.
Cool. So I mean, it really seems like we've got the whole swath of the apple growing or pome fruit growing regions across the US, which is I think folks will be pretty happy with.
Yeah, and then we also have a stakeholder advisory committee and then a scientific advisory committee. And representatives from both of those committees were selected to represent areas that are maybe not represented by the project personnel or the researchers and extension specialists on the project, but extend further into areas like North Carolina, New Mexico, and Minnesota, areas where we don't have project personnel.
Cool. And then this project doesn't seem like it'd be a bit of an overnight thing. About how long are we planning on working on this?
Yeah, so this is a 4-year project, but will likely extend to 5 years. This is a coordinated agricultural project, and it's meant to not just address the research issues during that grant period, but also build capacity, build coordination that will last beyond the course of the project. So it'll lead to new collaborations, new ideas, and new research that'll drive things beyond this initial 4 to 5 years of the project.
So this money just came in within the past 6 months, right? So if I am a fruit grower and or specifically a pome fruit grower and I want to make some comments or have some suggestions for, anyone on this project, is there a way I could go about doing that?
Yeah, so we in the first year of the project, we are working on a nationwide survey, putting that out to growers, and it's an opportunity for growers to indicate what types of extreme temperatures that are common or they've recently experienced in their orchards, what type of how they perceive that risk, but also an opportunity for growers to identify what things we should be focusing on from the applied side on, say, one grower is in a hot environment and they're really interested in ways to mitigate sunburn and they heard about this new product or this new strategy to do that. They can indicate that in the survey. We can take that feedback and develop our trials and our experiments that we're going to be conducting over the next 4 years after that. So the survey is really a way for growers to identify key things that they want us to look at, key things that are important to them, just to make sure that we're having a long-lasting impact from the research and extension that we do.
And then when all this research is kind of done or throughout the process of this research, if I'm that grower again, how am I going to hear about this? How is all this going to get disseminated to me?
We'll have regular annual reports, and then we also have a whole objective focused on extension, and that's people like you, Don, or Sean, and then we have extension personnel and all the other institutions that will be working towards getting project-based information out to the industry, and also working with the stakeholder advisory committee and the scientific advisory committee to have regular reporting and regular opportunities to report out to people that might not be involved in the project and extend that information out to them.
Nice. That's really cool. So Sean, Lee touched on it a little bit when we worked on his intro. So could you maybe give a bit of a rundown on why this is important for those of us in Pennsylvania and like the Mid-Atlantic?
Sure. Thanks, Don. So I think two of the major issues, temperature related issues that we face here in Pennsylvania is, of course, in the spring, it is the freeze frost issues, and that we regularly have blossoms and fruitlets developing, or during that time we have frost issues that is particularly prominent in some of the northern parts of the state, but also in once every few years we get that problem in the southern part of the state as well. So we are looking at to trial a few products, for example, one such as the cellulose nanocrystal sprays, that we did some preliminary work last year, but we're going to go ahead and do a full-scale replicated trial of that and other products for freeze stop, providing that few degrees of protection or to get over that frost. So that is one of the objectives. The second one that we're focusing on in Pennsylvania is also temperature related, is because we get very high temperatures, very high nighttime temperatures as well during the development of the apple during harvest, which is why we are not able to get some of that color, that beautiful color in some of the varieties like Honeycrisp. which is very important to get the highest quality grade of apples. And we are working on trials both with plant growth regulators as well as some trials with nutrient mixes to see, which sort of treatments, accompanied by an economic analysis as well, to try to see which sort of these kind of treatments will help growers to improve color, and which one of those is also the most economically feasible. So these are the two main objectives among the very many objectives that the whole team is dealing with, that we are going to focus here on in Pennsylvania. And I'd also like to add thanks, Lee, for including us in this project. So because these two objectives are very important here for Pennsylvania. So I appreciate the support.
To run this back just for a second, you mentioned cellulose nanocrystals. For folks who might be unfamiliar with those, could you give a bit of a rundown on what those are and kind of how those work?
Sure. So this is actually developed in Washington State. And so it was a collaboration between horticulturists and engineers, and they tried to develop this cellulose-based. That material is actually cellulose, but at the nanocrystal level. And what it does is it is sprayed on the trees to kind of provide a protective layer on the trees. So you'll notice that when it's sprayed on the trees, it'll provide a protective layer on the buds, protective layer on the flowers. And it's supposed to provide, a few degrees of protection, and that varies according to different locations. They've done some trials in Washington State with good efficacy, not only in apples, but also in sweet cherries and peaches and other crops like that. So we're very interested to see if we find that same effect of protection here in Pennsylvania with apples and peaches.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah, I know it's one of those products that's really interesting. So if folks hadn't heard about it before, it's good to get a bit of a rundown on what that means and what that is. And then I guess Lee, finally, maybe before we jump off here, this will be a pretty quick episode overall. If there's a way that someone wants to keep tabs on what SPARC's doing, is there some sort of like email or contact or website that they can follow?
Yeah, so we do have a LinkedIn account called Spark. So we do have that. We will have a web page that'll be launching shortly, and then we have spark.scri@gmail.com for email communications. But I'd really emphasize that a lot of this work is going to be communicated out through extension personnel and extension pathways. So watch out for emails coming, emails coming from Penn State Extension, Washington State Extension, Oregon State, all the key university extension pathways. This information will be coming out and labeled as SPARC over the next 4 years.
Cool. Yeah, I know for me, I'm super, super excited to be on this project, and I'm really grateful that, you guys asked myself and then Sean to be on it. So I'm glad that we finally got this rolling, and I'm really excited to work with you all for the next couple of years. So
Yeah, it's a great team. We're gonna have some great outputs, already having outputs from that. So just yeah, I just encourage the listeners to keep an ear out and keep an eye out for presentations coming on how to prepare apples and pears for extreme temperatures.
cool. And just once again, I'd like to thank you for coming on today. I hope this wasn't too painful for you overall. Hopefully you'll be willing to come back on again and give folks another update when possible. I know you're a busy guy, so I appreciate you putting time in the schedule for us. So
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.
yeah, cool. Kari, you wanted to give folks kind of a gentle reminder for the upcoming season.
Yes. So just to give folks just a heads up again, we talked about this in the fall, but everyone's in pruning mode. So as you're pruning, it's always good. Remember sanitation, sanitation, sanitation. There's no such good thing as dead wood. So if you see any cankers or see any sort of dead chunks in the branches, be sure to prune them out. Once you get to your peaches, don't forget about those brown rot mummies. Last year was a dry year, so there may not be too many mummies in the trees, but for those of you who may have experienced some some really wet weather in the season and had some brown rot and it mummified and is now it is hanging in the trees. It's a good idea to remove those. Another thing that I just two more things I just want to remind you about is the peach leaf curl spray. So if you didn't do your peach leaf curl spray in the fall, you still have an opportunity to do it before the season kicks off. So, peach leaf curl lives in the bud scales of the peach trees and nectarine trees, and the only time to expose those spores to fungicides is when there's no leaves on the trees. So you either do it at the end of the season or right before bud swell, in the early season. With that said, we've been pretty lucky so far in the mid-Atlantic, I think, in the Northeast, where we haven't had any really odd spikes in temperature, like 70 or 80 degrees, like we have had some years. But this is just to be on alert because that warm weather will be enough to cause some bud swell in those early varieties. So just to be mindful that if you haven't put on your peach leaf curl spray, to do so before those events. And you may luck out. We may not have any of those temperatures. I mean, Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow. So apparently 6 more weeks of winter. So this is just as a reminder to do that. You have several different options: Xyram, lime sulfur, chlorothalonil. You can use copper, but lately I've been a little underwhelmed by copper for peach leaf curl, so that's why I push folks towards those other fungicides. And the last thing, just as a reminder, is about weather station. Be sure to give your weather station some love if you already haven't. Very important to make sure that that is up and running and ready to go before the season truly kicks off, when the buds break dormancy. And so there's lots of resources in the last fruit times. In October, I'd put information in there about weather station maintenance, but just make sure everything's checks out okay, everything's working. I currently have to replace the wind speed sensor to my weather station, so things can piddle out for whatever reason. So just as a reminder with that. And that's it, Don. Do you have any questions? I missed anything?
No, that sounds really good. I know we
Okay.
talked about orchard maintenance in fall as our last episode, so this is just a, hey guys, if you haven't done it,
Yeah.
get to it.
Yeah.
So cool. That's awesome there. And then as a reminder for folks, we have winter fruit schools coming up starting next week. Oh my God.
It is hard
So
to believe.
yeah. So on February 11th, we have a meeting in Altoona at the Blair County Convention Center. That starts at 8:30 a.m. Starting February 12th, at Birch Farms in Northeast Pennsylvania, as in the town of Northeast, not the direction. Then on February 13th, we have a meeting at Wexford at Sorgel's Orchards. On the 18th, we've got the Lancaster County meeting at the Lancaster Farm and Home Center. Lewisburg is on February 19th at the Union County Government Center. Make sure you look that up. I know several folks I think they thought it might have been at the place that it was last year, but it is at the Union County Government Center. And then finally, my meeting on February 20th at the Berks County Agricultural Center. And you'll get to see all the joyous construction that's been going on there. So,
And
um,
I just want to give out a shout to the New Jersey meetings. Yours truly will be providing the tree fruit disease talks for the South and North New Jersey meetings. That's on February 4th and 5th. So the South is on the 4th, the 5th is the North meeting. And I know the North meeting, that information just went out through Rutgers Extension, different venues, but I haven't seen the South one. But I will be there talking about all the pertinent issues of the day for the New Jersey growers.
and then I'm just going to say thanks everybody for listening. I will throw a couple cool links to some work and our survey in the episode description for this. Please take the time and fill it out if you get the chance. I know everyone out east here is a little exhausted after Mid-Atlantic Convention, but it'd be really helpful for us so that we can really get things kind of tuned into what you folks are looking for and you folks want. So with that, I will sign off and we'll say goodbye, everybody. Say bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
See ya. Hope to see you at the meetings.
Bye, everybody.